Welcome to No Longer Conformed. I am Erik Garthe, and we are in class with David. Lessons on developing leaders. In this session, we'll be looking at 1 Samuel chapter 21, verses 1 to 15, the fear of a fugitive. Someone said there are three types of lies: to protect feelings, to avoid punishment, and self-deception, like in the case of medical conditions, relationship situations, work issues. You may think there are other reasons that people lie. That's fine. Who is the father of lies? Well, John 8, verse 44, it says, the devil, who does not stand in the truth because he has no truth in him. When he speaks a lie, he speaks from his own resource, for he is a liar and the father of it. Who promised that the truth will make you free? Well, in John chapter 8, verse 32, Jesus said, "And you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." Sometimes we panic in a threatening situation, such as when children go silent or who's guilty of something. We meet David in this session as a fugitive. He's on the run from King Saul. Look at chapter 21 and verses 1 and 2. Now, David came to Nob to Ahimelech the priest, and Ahimelech was afraid when he met David and said to him, "Why are you alone and no one is with you?" So David said to Ahimelech the priest, "The king has ordered me on some business and said to me, 'Do not let anyone know anything about the business on which I send you or what I have commanded you. And I have directed my young men to such and such a place.'" David told a gross lie. He was on a mission for the king. His attendants were sent ahead, and it must remain a secret. It was a lie. It can't be justified. There were serious consequences of that lie. Look at 1 Samuel 22, verse 9 down to verse 13. Then answered Deg the Edomite, who was set over the servants of Saul, and said, "I saw the son of Jesse going to Nob, to Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub, and he inquired of the Lord for him, gave him provisions, and gave him the sword of Goliath the Philistine." So the king sent to call Ahimelech the priest, the son of Ahitub, and all his father's house, the priests who were in Nob, and they all came to the king. And Saul said, "Hear now, son of Ahitub." He answered, "Here I am, my lord." And so Saul said to him, "Why have you conspired against me, you and the son of Jesse, in that you have given him bread and a sword, and have inquired of God for him, that he should rise against me, to lie and wait, as it is this day?" And then if you drop down to verse 16, "And the king said, 'You shall surely die, Ahimelech, you and your father's house.' And then the king said to the guards who stood about him, 'Turn and kill the priests of the Lord, because their hand also is with David, and because they knew when he fled and did not tell it to me.' But the servants of the king would not lift their hands to strike the priests of the Lord. And the king said to Deg, 'You turn and kill the priests.' And so Deg the Edomite turned and struck the priests, and killed on that day 85 men who wore the linen ephod. Also Nob, the city of the priests, he struck with the edge of the sword both men and women, children and nursing infants, oxen and donkeys, and sheep with the edge of the sword." Did David have to lie? Wouldn't the priests have helped him anyway? Wouldn't the priest inquire of God for him anyway? David, the man of great faith and courage, now he's a man of fear and cowardice. What happened? He stopped trusting God and began to do things in his own strength. God anointed him to be king. Wouldn't he fulfill it? Let me tell you two things about good men like David. Good men sometimes fall short of the grace of God. And good men sometimes act foolishly in bad times. Difficult situations come to all of us at some point. Fear will tempt us to do stupid things. And we can learn a few things from these experiences. Here, let me give you 3 principles in 3 examples of the grace of God for David. First, moral obligation must overrule ritual. 1 Samuel chapter 21, verses 3 through 6. Now therefore, what have you on hand? Give me 5 loaves of bread in my hand and whatever can be found. And the priest answered David and said, there is no common bread on hand, but there is holy bread. If the young men have at least kept themselves from women. Then David answered the priest and said to him, truly women have been kept from us about 3 days since I came out, and the vessels of the young men are holy, and the bread is in effect common, even though it was consecrated in the vessel this day. So the priest gave him holy bread, for there was no bread there but the showbread, which had been taken from before the Lord in order to put hot bread in its place on the day when it was taken away. An interesting principle emerges here, one that Jesus reinforced. Mercy rather than sacrifice. In Matthew chapter 12, verses 1 through 8, it tells us that at that time Jesus went through the grain fields on the Sabbath, and his disciples were hungry and began to pluck heads of grain and to eat. And when the Pharisees saw it, apparently they were following Jesus everywhere he went, they said to him, look, your disciples are doing what is not lawful to do on the Sabbath. But he said to them, have you not read what David did when he was hungry? He and those who were with him, how he entered the house of God and ate the showbread, which was not lawful for him to eat, nor for those who were with him, but only for the priests? Or have you not read in the law that on the Sabbath the priests in the temple profane the Sabbath and are blameless? Yet I say to you that in this place there is one greater than the temple. But if you had known what this means, I desire mercy and not sacrifice, you would not have condemned the guiltless. For the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath. The showbread was only for the priest's use. But here we see grace on display. Sometimes the rules must be broken for ministry. Second, resources dedicated often become privileges returned. Look at verses 7 through 9 of chapter 21. Now, a certain man of the servants of Saul was there that day, detained before the Lord, and his name was Doeg the Edomite, the chief of the herdsmen who belonged to Saul. And David said to Ahimelech, is there not here on hand a spear or a sword? For I have brought neither my sword nor my weapons with me, because the king's business required haste. So the priest said, the sword of Goliath, the Philistine, whom you killed in the valley of Elah, there it is, wrapped in a cloth behind the ephod. If you will take that, take it, for there is no other except that one here. And David said, there is none like it, give it to me. Another lie. His haste made him neglect a weapon. What did David really need? A shield and a sword, but not the physical ones. He needed the shield of faith. He needed the sword of the Spirit. Priests don't keep swords in the tabernacle, and yet Goliath was there. A couple of things about that sword. That sword provoked David's faith, a reminder of God's power and his special calling. That sword was dedicated to the Lord, placed in honor of the Lord and gratefulness for victory. What we dedicate or give to God of our time, treasure, and talent often come back to us as a special privilege. Let me ask you, what do you need to give to the Lord in your life today? And then third, God's providence often runs contrary to his promises. Look at verses 10 through 15. And then David arose and fled that day from before Saul and went to Achish, the king of Gath. And the servants of Achish said to him, "Is this not David, the king of the land? Did they not sing to him, of him to one another in dances, saying, Saul has slain his thousands and David his 10,000s? Now David took these words to heart and was very much afraid of Achish, the king of Gath. So he changed his behavior before them, pretended madness in their hands, scratched on the doors of the gate, and let his saliva fall down on his beard. And then Achish said to his servants, Look, you see the man is insane. Why have you brought him to me? Have I a need of madmen that you have brought this fellow to play the madman in my presence? Shall this fellow come into my house? David was now in exile. The one who will control riches is begging bread. The one to be crowned ruler is fleeing the country. Proverbs chapter 15 and verse 33 is very clear. The fear of the Lord is the instruction of wisdom, and before honor is humility. Often, God's providence runs contrary to his promises. Why? Well, God will allow difficulties to rise to test his servant's faith, to bring glory to his name, and to accomplish his plan. What happened here was amazing. David went to hide among the Philistines. He was their greatest enemy after the defeat of Goliath and their army. He was not well received by the king's servant, but the king himself, he was cool with it. I wonder why. Was the king fooled? 1 Samuel 28, verses 1 and 2. And then chapter 29, verse 6. Now it happened in those days that the Philistines gathered their armies together for war, to fight with Israel. And Achish said to David, You assuredly know that you will go out with me to battle, you and your men. So David said to Achish, Surely you know what your servant can do. And Achish said to David, Therefore I will make you one of my chief guardians forever. And then in 29 verse 6, Then Achish called David and said to him, Surely as the Lord lives, you have been upright, and you're going out and you're coming in with me, and the army is good in my sight. For to this day I have not found evil in you since the day of your coming to me. Grace is always available in difficult situations. David received God's providential care in the enemy's presence. David found grace in his lying. But on another later occasion, his sin brought judgment. Trust God always. Let me ask you, what difficult situation is in your life to handle? You have a great day.